I want to go ahead and address what he just said. I mean, he's saying that I'm saying that light is the first thing created in each creation story. Yet I said no such thing. All right? Anyway, Death4Note goes on to say, J-Raw makes the common mistake that light was created in Genesis 1:3, which is a usual misunderstanding amongst layman critics of the Bible. But in Genesis 1:3, it simply states, let there be light. It doesn't say God created light or God made light, but God simply let it be. You know what? You're right, Death4Note. That's what it says. I can't argue with you there. I think you're making a bad point, but you're right, that's what it says. If J-Ron took the time to actually research these texts, you're right, Death4Note. I have done absolutely no research into these texts whatsoever. None. You've exposed me. I'm a fraud.
Dr. Ross, during your lecture earlier on, you said that you were convinced that the chronological sequence of the creation events in Genesis 1 is exactly correct. Just allow me to read a couple of verses here. And God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, a third day. And then the Bible goes on to say, and God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, a fourth day. Now, as an astronomer, do you honestly believe that the earth preceded the sun in the creation of the universe, especially given everything you said about the importance of the intergravitational effect of like the sun, the moon on the earth and the sun on the moon and the earth and so on and so forth throughout the solar system? That's my question.
Okay, excellent question. And 2 points. You left out one verse in that sequence. It's verse 14, which says, let there be the great lights. And then there's another creation account you want to look at, Job 38, verses 8 and 9. Remember I made the comment you want all 20 creation accounts to be consistent? When you go to Job 38 and 9, it will tell you that God enshrouded the primordial ocean of the earth in darkness. He wrapped it in thick darkness, referring to the atmosphere, the cloud layer. So it was dark on the face of the deep before the 6 creation days, because the earth was enshrouded with this atmosphere that was opaque to light and that kept the waters below in darkness. So when you read the first creation day, it says, let there be light. It doesn't say that God made the light. It doesn't say that God created the light. It says, let the light be. Therefore, what was taking place on creation day 1 is that God transformed the atmosphere of the earth so that the light that was outside could now pass through the atmosphere to the surface of the waters. So in creation day 1, the atmosphere was no longer opaque. It was now translucent. Then you get to creation day 4, and it says, let there be the great lights. It doesn't say that God made the great lights or he created the great lights. He says, let them be. And this is when God transforms the atmosphere a second time, so that instead of a translucent atmosphere, you now have a transparent atmosphere. Now, remember my talk, I made the point that the point of view or the frame of reference must be established first before you interpret the text. The Spirit of God is hovering over the surface of the waters of planet Earth. Therefore, we're to interpret the 6 creation days from the point of view of an observer on the surface of planet Earth. And it starts off as dark because the cloud layer is opaque. The cloud layer becomes translucent, therefore there's light. But not until creation day 4 does the atmosphere become translucent. That's the first time observers can actually see the lights that have been responsible for the light ever since creation day 1. Then verse 15 tells you why, so they may serve as signs to mark seasons and years. And for whom? It's for the animals that will be created on creation day 5, the swarms of small sea creatures. And tomorrow we'll tell you why we believe that refers to the Cambrian explosion, which is that first moment when God creates life that is so advanced it needs the visibility of the sun, moon, and stars to regulate their biological clocks. That's why it says so that they may serve to mark seasons and years. Birds, for example, need to know the seasons and the years. And then verse 16 says, so God made the sun, moon, and stars. But it's in the verb form, the completed form of the verb, the Hebrew verb, which means that God made the sun, moon, and stars at some unspecified time in the past, which means it could be day 3, day 2, day 1, or in the beginning. But based on Job 38, 9, and 10, we would conclude that they were made in the beginning, before the 6 days.
It says, then God said, let there be light, and there was light. Death4Note, I just am not getting the same thing from that you are. I'm sorry, it just not sound like what you're describing. Viewers, decide for yourself. I don't really give a fuck. Let's say Death4Note's view of this is correct. That, when it says in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, that's when all this stuff is created, and that it just takes him several days to come up with, what was your wording? Functions? Alright, it takes him several days to come up with functions for his creation. Alright, so he doesn't come up with functions for the sun, moon, and stars until the 4th fucking day. If that is what is being described here, that's still fucking silly. Alright? He creates everything in one goddamn day, and it takes him several days to give them functions.
You're right. The word yom, that's translated day in Genesis 1, has a variety of literal definitions. Actually 4. It can mean the portion of the daylight hours, all of the daylight hours, the 24-hour period, or a long but finite period of time. And incidentally, that's common to nouns in the Hebrew language. The word earth that you see in Genesis 1 has 5 different literal definitions. The word heaven has 3 different literal definitions. And it's simply the result of the fact that in biblical Hebrew, there are very few nouns. So whatever nouns you have, they have to do multiple duty. And in biblical Hebrew, the only word you have to describe a long, finite period of time is that word yom. So if Moses wanted to describe a long period of time, that's the only word he could have used. Now, you heard in my talk how there are 20 major creation accounts in the Bible. What we do in this book is we take you through those 20 accounts, because the position we take at Reasons to Believe is that you want to take the Bible both literally and consistently. And so our problem with the 24-hour view is that you've got the 20 different creation accounts contradicting one another. But if it's 6 consecutive long periods of time, then all 20 creation accounts are consistent.